What's up, everybody? Welcome to Paper Champs. I'm your host, John Helmers. I'm here with these two beautiful individuals, Matthew Kolbeck and Charlie Rollins. Today, we're going to be talking about starting pitchers. We all listed our top 10 starting pitchers. Top spot to the bottom, we're going to be talking about starters. We're going to be talking about guys we like, guys we'd love to have on our team, kind of sleepers. I don't know, it's a weird word. And then also guys we don't want to have on our team. Then we're going to be talking about relief pitchers. Same thing, top 10, guys we want on our team, guys we don't want on our team. We'll talk a little bit about like the formats of it too. Points leagues, obviously, starting pitchers stressed a little bit more. Charlie, lead it off. Who's your top guy? Top guy and why?
Jacob DeGrom. I think he's the most consistent. I mean, arguably the most talented, but I think for me, the biggest thing is just the consistency, the track record.
Yeah, I mean that's what we all had. So, Matt, as the resident Mets homer, you could speak to that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, if you just look at these top 10 pitchers, I mean, he's the only one over the last 4 years that consistently had 30 starts and sub 3 ERA. He's been a Cy Young candidate for at least the last 4 years. I don't even know about years before that. I mean, he's just been the most durable. It wasn't even a question for me.
So format doesn't matter to you guys, no matter what. He's locked into the number one spot.
He's the safest pitcher.
Yep, agreed.
Yeah, I agree with that too. I also think he's like that weird like what is he, like 31, 32, but like he doesn't have the miles compared to a guy like Kershaw. So like he's in that same age group, but he feels younger to me for some reason. Like he feels like he's still I think he could still play at this high rate. Like if he's the best pitcher in baseball for another 2-3 years, it wouldn't surprise me. So
just hit 100 in a spring game 2 days ago too.
He's a beast. He's an absolute beast. I don't think there's really anything else to go over. Jacob DeGrom, the tits. Matt, who you got at number 2?
Shane Bieber.
The Biebs.
He's just dominant. I mean, everyone thought his 2019 might have been a fluke, and he just came back in 2020 and was even a little bit better. So I expect good things from him to come.
No worries, no, I don't know. Full season, can he do it for a full season type thing? I mean, I know he did it in 2019, but now also this has to be said. He's your number 2 guy. You'll never pay for him. Your strategy you would never have to pay for this guy. Do you think? Let me tell you this though. If you could take your own subjectivism out of it, do you think it's crazy to where he's going in drafts, back end of the first round, early second round, or do you think that makes sense?
I mean,
objectively,
if you take out my objectiveness, and I still don't want him. I don't want a pitcher. Like I'll find another one later.
Charlie, who you got at 2?
Yeah, same guy, Shane Bieber. Probably the best young pitcher in my opinion, and I think he's only going to get better.
He's all the Indians have left of those top guys. I mean, they're bringing up they have some nice talent too, but so you guys had Bieber. Here's our first disagreement. I put my boy Bauer. This kind of goes into league format. I think if we're doing something like a points league where you're getting getting points for innings pitched, strikeouts, all that type of stuff, I don't know, man. I think Bauer is just going to be an absolute workhorse. I think this is really like the top 4 guys for me are all kind of extremely like just throw, they all have a little bit of things criticisms, but I just think Bauer, he's in a new city. I think he's going to want to prove that he's a beast. Yeah, I just think he's going to go out there, and even if he might not have the single-handed best numbers, I think he's going to put up the stats and he's going to put up the points. And I think, the 200 innings, close to 300 strikeout type guys, I think he's going to be closer to that guy. I think if you play in a quality start league, he's got to be up there. I think he plays in an easier division. Obviously, the Padres are great, but I think he's going to have a ton of cupcake games. I think the fact that he seems to be, if you look at his stats, he seems to always play really, really well in the high stress games, Whereas and then he'll get blown up by the Tigers, and it's like, what the hell? I think he needs to put himself into really competitive situations. The fact that the Dodgers are going to be in competitive situations all year, and maybe head to head, I'd probably put Bieber here, but in a points league, Bauer's my guy, just because I think he's just going to rack up those points. He's just going to be a horse. So that's our first disagreement, but it's really, I'm also biased. I love the guy. So
You should have did a whole segment with one eye closed. I don't know what you were doing there, keeping both your eyes open.
yeah, I'm a huge fan of him just going out there and doing whatever the hell he wants. Charlie, on the other hand, old fashioned Mister, keep baseball not fun, and just take your lumps and go back, and if you hit a home run, just place the bat softly down, jog around the bags. You hate it, right, Charlie? You hate it. You hate all that.
No, I love some fun. I just think I think the whole one eye it just is crossing the line slightly into one up in the other team, and it's just kind of a little disrespectful. I don't think it's the end of the world by any means, but I didn't love it.
I don't think he was doing it to slight the other team. I thought he was doing it for his control issues. Didn't he say that?
If you watch, if you're an avid fan of his YouTube videos and his blog, you'll know that he has been doing that for quite some time. And I don't know why he won't get it. He doesn't really talk about why. I'm guessing he's a psychopath, so I'm guessing there's some sort of reason why he's doing it. Showboating, I do not believe is the reason. I don't think he wants to say, I was able to strike you out with one eye closed. I think he wants to say, I know how to do this to hit this exact spot. I don't know. He's a weirdo, but he's done it. He does it on his blog all the time. Follow his blog. It's good stuff.
I mean, I understand that he does that in practice or whatever, but then even a spring training game to do that against a live opponent, I don't know.
Even more awesome. Even more credit to them.
I just think it was kind of childish, but
all right. Well,
they all be in agreement that that Trevor Bauer's, slowly becoming the face of Major League Baseball.
No,
I'm not going to agree with you on that one. But I think he might become one of the more recognizable people. I don't know if that's going to be just because he's so polarizing, as opposed to entertaining in a positive way.
He's interesting.
Yeah, he's really interesting. All right, listen, this isn't a Trevor Bauer podcast, even though it could be, and I would love for it to be. Let's move on to number 3. Charlie, you don't really need to get much into it because you have Bauer there. So I'm guessing, obviously you think he's gonna have a great season.
Well, yeah, I mean, just real quick. I mean, I agree with a lot of the things you said. I do think he's going to be a workhorse. To me, it's kind of splitting hairs, but the reason I had him third rather than second is he's shown a little bit too much inconsistency for me. I know he had a great season last year, but I just want to see a little bit more consistency out of him.
Yeah, of course. I think that's probably what everybody feels. Put it together for an entire season, kind of like he did. I think it was 2018 or something like that. So, Colbs, we got number 3, your guy, your favorite pitcher, Garrett Cole. Tell me about it. Tell me why you love him so much. Why he's your third favorite pitcher of all the pitchers in baseball.
Because he's probably one of the only ones to have the potential to have 300 Ks. I mean, what's not to like about that? And
I was being sarcastic because you don't.
Yeah, because I don't actually
like Garrett Cole.
No,
but you gotta respect him. You gotta respect what he does.
He was pretty inconsistent, I'd say, 4 years ago, and then he had that full solid year with the Houston, and then his 2019, and then 2020 he was solid with the Yankees. So I expect that to kind of continue until proven otherwise. So I don't like him, and I wouldn't pay for him, but at the same time, there's kind of at this point no denying his skills.
Yeah, he learned how to cheat, and now he's been able to do it for the past couple of years.
And now he plays for the Yankees, so it's perfect.
Yeah, I have him at 4. My only thing with him is I think he plays in a non-favorable ballpark. I think he has a homer problem. A lot of the top guys do. If you're going to knock any of the top guys, a lot of times it's just they let up the solo shots, which they'll tell you isn't that big of a deal to them. But I don't like the park he plays in. I think that division is nasty still. As far as hitting wise, I mean, even like the Red Sox aren't going to be a great team, but they have some great hitters. So yeah, that's the reason why I have him at 4. Charlie, man, Charlie, you got him at 5. You got Darvish ahead of him.
Yeah.
Tell me about your Darvish love.
I just think Darvish has like some of the nastiest stuff out of anyone in the league, and I feel confident that he's kind of overcome some of the mental aspects of the game that he was kind of struggling like post 2017 World Series. I think some of the revelations about the Astros cheating, I think, has been beneficial to him. And I think also going to the NL West, like you mentioned earlier, some favorable opponents, some good parks to pitch in. I just think he's going to have a really, really good year.
Colbs, you have him 9th. Obviously, like that's still you still love the guy. He's 9th. But I mean, if you look like industry wise, that's pretty low. Do you like him, but you like others better, or do you actually have like concerns with him?
When he first came in and was pitching for Texas, I loved him. Striking out everyone, and just he'd have those blow up games or those blow up innings, and then he went to the Dodgers in 2017, and then all the scandalous stuff happened, and then every time he changes the team, he seems to kind of be a little rocky. When he went to the Cubs, he was a little inconsistent. So I don't know if that's going to change. I mean, obviously, I still think he has the skills. I just want to, he seems to be a guy that thrives when he's comfortable. And going to a new team, new ballpark, I'm a little skeptical. Obviously, I still think he's a top 10 pitcher for me, but you're not going to be disappointed with him. I don't think you're disappointed with any of these guys. If you get any of these guys in a draft, you're going to be happy.
Yeah, I agree with you, especially the comfort comment, and I think that's why the Cubs traded his personal catcher with them. I think he absolutely needs that routine, which I agree with. The one interesting thing, you guys have you guys ever heard of Pitching Ninja? It's a pretty popular account on Instagram. He basically does all of those like overlay videos. So he shows like Yu Darvish throwing, and then it'll be like where his fastball would be, and then like 3 other pitches at the same time. So you could kind of see like how crazy it is from his arm angle. He's awesome follow, awesome stuff. Interesting enough, like the first half of 2019 for Darvish was not good. He was getting blown up, walking everybody, just whipped to death, which had been a problem for him. And then he actually, Pitching Ninja did like a breakdown of what he was doing differently, and he actually like credited him seeing himself on Twitter or something for that. Basically, the second half of 2019 to today, he's arguably the best pitcher in baseball. I love him. I think he might have the most K per 9 upside of any pitcher. Kind of covered DeGrom. We got Bauer out of the way. We got Bieber. We got Cole, Darvish. Colbs, you're really high on Giolito. I am too, but not as high as you. You wanna talk about him?
I just think he made big steps. The last year, I'd say, end of 2019, and then last year, I think he's just going to be striking out everyone, and just kind of like, I think he's going to take on that, superstar ace come this year. Really not much else to say. I mean, we go to Max Scherzer. Max Scherzer, I'm just writing off 2020 as just like a abnormality. I just expect that guy to be healthy and just doing what Max Scherzer does.
I agree, Charlie. You worry eventually though that Scherzer's age is gonna catch up with him.
I mean, real quick on Giolito, like I think the biggest thing with him is that unlike you guys, I didn't have him ranked in my top 10.
Oh, you don't?
No.
Yeah.
So
What's
I mean,
why do you hate him? What's the hate for?
hate his guts. No, I mean, like Matt said, the K upside is ridiculous. To me, I haven't seen, besides the K numbers in 2019, I haven't seen like across the board like a truly elite season from him. And I know he's still young, but I just think that there's safer picks for me. And if I'm doing top 10, I mean, again, I think for me consistency is a huge thing. The upside is there, but I mean, you look at his numbers. I mean, besides like a small sample size in 2017, he hasn't had an ERA lower than 3.4. The innings, he's never topped 200 innings. So it's like I'm worried about him, has yet to show that he's like a true workhorse. And again, besides the K's, I think he's inconsistent.
Yeah, honestly, he reminds me a lot of Darvish. Like, I think they're similar in the mold of they have excellent stuff, but that's when the command starts to come into question. And Darvish, that was always his knock, was that his whip was always high. His ERA was down, but his whip was always a little high because he just walked too many people, or he let too many people on base. And I think Giolito has a little bit of that in him as well. Yeah, it would be interesting. I think him, Bauer, like those are the guys that they have such ridiculous stuff, but can they keep it? Can they be one of those kings of command type guy, like a DeGrom, or like even Bieber? That's why Bieber's so great, is like his stuff isn't as nasty as those guys, but his command is just excellent.
Yeah, his K to, like, I think Bieber's K to walk ratio is like 5 or 6 strikeouts to walks
Yeah.
over the last 2 seasons. But I mean, same thing with Giolito. He was up to 4 in 2019, as opposed to 1 in 2018. So it's like he's making improvements, making strides. I think a lot of those years, though. I mean, 2018 he was up for full season. Before that, it was like he was like up and down, right? He'd come up, get blown up.
Oh yeah, I mean he was he was. I don't know if he was the overall number one prospect at one point, but he was pretty damn high up there for consensus rank as far as like prospect. But yeah, he came up and had some issues, but I like the White Sox a lot this year. I love that rotation. I think we'll talk about it when I talk about my number 10 guy, but I think they're a really, really nice rotation. So I think the next Scherzer, like we touched on, I think Scherzer's gonna Scherzer. I think he's nasty, but I think he's old news now. So people want the sexy pick. There's nothing sexy about him. To me, he's going around the same range as like my biggest bust guy, which is, well, not my biggest, but just as far as draft wise, like Walker Buehler. Like, I'll take Max Scherzer every day of the week over Walker Buehler, because again, for fantasy, I want a guy that I know is going to be there in September when you have your fantasy playoffs, not being, he's not going to have innings limitations or any of that type of stuff, right? Like, it's just an age concern to me, and with age comes injury concern. But I touched a little bit on it. You guys both have Buehler as your number 7. Charlie, give me a little bit of non-bias, non-LA Dodger homerism, and tell me why you love Walker Buehler so much.
Well, it's kind of funny because we just got done talking about Giolito, and probably a little tad overcritical, but basically all the issues that I kind of said about Giolito could probably be applied to Walker Buehler too.
Not probably, they could be.
So my homerism is probably coming into account a little bit, because I guess probably because I've just watched more of his starts. I'm just more of a believer in his ability. And he's definitely had inconsistency too, but I think when you combine it with the fact that we've seen him like succeed in the playoffs too, I just feel like that's an added point in his favor.
Manny?
I mean, he was really only bad in 2017. Other than that, I mean, his stats are.
Last year wasn't great.
Yeah, last year wasn't great.
I mean, okay. So he had 8 starts. If you had one blow-up game, that messes up with your ERA. He still had a whip. He still had a whip below 1.
I'm just saying he wasn't great. That's all. My biggest thing with Buehler is, and my biggest thing going back to this list is, like, this is fantasy. I want guys that are going to be not the best on a per inning basis. I want guys that are going to give me the stats and give me the points. And I don't think Buehler's going to be, to me, I don't want Buehler just because where you got to take him, where you got to draft him. I'll take a guy that I think I'm going to get way more out of, like a guy like Scherzer or even like Nola. Like, those are guys that are just going to be, they're horses. They're let out of the stable and they could go pitch as many innings as they can. Who's going to be there I plan on being in the playoffs. I plan on being in the championship week. If you're going to be there, You better
Which
have your
league?
guys. Any and all of them, my friend. Any and all of them. But I mean, I think that's honestly like if you get to a point in fantasy sports where like you're confident and you're really playing to win, then you got to start thinking about that type of stuff. Like there was 1 year, like 2 years back or something, I had such a great season. Then I got into the playoffs. I lost in the first round of the playoffs to like the 6th seed. No, it was actually to Chris Moorhead, which was even.
Oh, that's even worse.
But it was because I had like 3 guys that were awesome throughout the year, but they were young guys and they got shut down in September. And like that's something that I never really thought about. But again, it's like we're not talking about just baseball here. We're talking about fantasy, and that's a part of fantasy that I never really thought of that like has to be thought of now. Who's going to be there for me in those championship weeks? We think about it in fantasy football all the time. Always thinking about like schedule and strength of schedule and this and that. Like I think it's something that needs to be thought of. We all have Nola pretty high. Colb's or Charlie, anything to say about him, or just kind of we know what we're getting from him?
Just another workhorse that's going to strike out a shit ton of people, and that's what I want. I want pitchers who could. Every single pitcher that I have in this list is getting over 200 strikeouts, or at least has the ability to get over 200 strikeouts when healthy.
I think Nola too, to me, is one of the rare pitchers on this list. Yeah, probably him and maybe Shane Bieber and Giolito, Walker Bueller. But like to me, it's like more than some of those other guys. He's shown that consistency, but he also has the upside too. Like he's shown that he could be the workhorse, but I feel like he still has some improvement, like stuff wise. Or not, maybe not improvement, maybe progression is a better word.
Now here's the real question, Charlie. For $38, is he going to be on your team next year?
I haven't fully made that decision.
No. But Charlie doesn't know how to make decisions. He goes to the very last minute.
Yeah.
It's interesting though, and it's not. It may be colored by the fact that he's on your team, but I feel like Aaron Nola is like the perfect Charlie guy. Like you just want somebody that's gonna get those numbers at the end of the year. There might be a little bit of ups and downs, but like kind of the way that you don't like people bat flipping, you don't like people jumping out of the dugout, you don't like people closing their eyes on the mound. You just want it nice and simple. You don't want anything bumpy. You just give him boring. And Aaron Nola is fucking boring. And that's what you're gonna get.
I just value consistency. I think that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, and I totally get that. But I like going for the ride with the guys. I like seeing, give me that big splash guy that might be not even drafted next year. Like to me,
like
that's
the Comets.
Yeah.
Exactly. Burn bright, and they might burn out quick, but it'll be a lot of fun.
Trevor Bauer, baby.
You do love the Comets.
I do. Kershaw. I mean, do we even really need to talk about him? I mean, we all got him.
Best pitcher of our generation. We're just giving him the respect he deserves.
Yep.
The only reason I don't have him higher is just because like injury concerns. Obviously, he's usually they're gonna still handle him with care. The Dodgers don't need to do anything crazy with him because they have so much depth. The slightest little like, hey, I'm feeling a little tweak in my back, they're gonna shut him down, and that's fine because they're not worried about fantasy baseball. They're worried about making sure he's there
when it counts
to repeat now as a world champion pitcher. The monkey's off his back, even though I still don't think it is. I think he needs to win in a full season, but I still think they're champs. I still think he's a champ. But the haters, I just want him to shut them up too. I want, because they still have something. It's like Colin. Like Colin won in our league last year. Nobody's actually giving him respect.
I'm giving
Asterisk.
him respect.
No, you're not.
Asterisk.
Don't you guys talk about my good buddy Colin?
So good that you wouldn't even share a team with him.
I will, and we're.
It's gonna be too late. It's gonna be too late by the time.
That's on the recording.
You know what? I think I'm gonna do Irons League. Okay, Charlie. Well, it's August, and the league's been going on for 2 months, so you don't have really anybody too crazy in your top 10. Charlie, the reason why I say that is you have. I love Luis Castillo. I think you're absolutely right. I wanted to put him at 10, but I just couldn't do it because I fell in love with Lance Lynn after looking at his numbers. But give me a little Castillo love.
I love his like strikeout potential. Maybe he's not quite at that workhorse level yet, but I feel like if he's not there yet, he's right on the cusp. And again, just kind of like Nola, I feel like he still has some improvement, like stuff wise, or maybe not even stuff wise, just like consistency. But I feel like this is the year that he's going to really take that leap into superstardom, Cy Young caliber pitcher. Also, I don't think the NL Central is going to be as good as years past. I mean, I know he pitches in a hitter's park, but I think pitching against the Pirates is going to be,
The hope.
yeah, exactly. I mean, I think even like a team like the Brewers, Jackie Bradley was a great pickup, but I wouldn't be surprised if their offense isn't quite as good as years past. So yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong. We haven't seen, I don't know, statistically, but we haven't seen like a true SP1 season out of him, have we?
I think 2019.
Yeah,
was
2019.
2019. I mean,
He
SP1
had,
is just a top 12 pitcher. So I guess the thing is, like, I still think a lot of people are waiting for Castillo to have like a legit breakout season.
2019, he was 3.4 ERA, 1.14 WHIP, 190 innings pitched, 226 strikeouts. I mean,
But people still want better, right? Like that's still a little bit on the ERA high side.
his whip is a little high. His career average is 1.17.
my 10 spot was between him and Giolito, and it was just, I don't know, it kind of came. I just felt a little bit more comfortable with Castillo than Giolito, but to me, those guys are very similar.
I mean, Castillo arguably has the best pitch in baseball. So to me, when you have that sort of power and you have that in your back pocket, like if that's working, everything else is working. Yeah, he could be the best. He could be the best pitcher in baseball. But I just say it because I still feel like people are just like, they're still drafting him with the hopes that he's going to be even better.
Yeah.
It's almost like a lighter version of him is like Barrios. Like I feel like people are still waiting for Barrios to be like this ace, which is just not, I don't think is going to happen. He doesn't have the stuff that Castillo has. Matt, you like Castillo? You have any hesitation? Yeah.
I mean, he was my first pitcher drafted in our 40 man for my, I think in the third round, maybe. I'm not sure.
Charlie, would you be comfortable? So you'd be comfortable if Castillo is your first pitcher drafted?
Yeah.
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 Well, do you think if you went that route, we could talk a little bit of strategy after we do this, but just curious, if you went Castillo, do you think you're going to go, would you want like Castillo and like you spending pretty much like back-to-back pitching picks then? So you get like two of those fringe SP1 guys, or?
Yeah, I would either do that or I would just look for like more consistent guys. I wouldn't maybe the next couple pitchers that I would draft, I wouldn't be looking for like a similar, like I need this person to take the next leap. I would be looking for like, hey, this is what he is, this is what he's done, and this is good enough.
Oh, Kyle Hendricks.
Yeah, that's a Kyle Hendricks, or to segue into your guy, a Lance Lynn.
Lance Lynn, baby. I don't know why, Matt. I know you love this guy. I know this guy is like a typical, obviously you don't love him that much because he's not in your top 10 like me. But again, fantasy wise, this dude, I think led in innings pitched last year, which take that for what you will. I mean, he had a shit ton of quality starts. He just knows who he is. And those type of guys, like, you just know what you're going to get from him. Could he blow up? Yeah, he might have a couple blow up games, but like he's on a really competitive team now. He's not sexy, and he's not going to be the best pitcher in baseball. But I think like he's going to be one of the most consistent. And when you talk about the importance of that in fantasy baseball, especially certainly not in like a best ball league, but in something in anything like a head-to-head or a weekly league, having a guy that's just going to go out there and you know what you're going to get every week, and he's almost like a little CC Sabathia now. Like he's just going out there and he's just a horse, and I
And
love
he's
it.
going, 2 to 3, 4 rounds after those top,
Right. Yeah, that's another
I mean,
big thing is where you're getting these guys, and that's the reason why they are where they are in our top 10 too. It's not just because of their skills, it's also because where you got to get these guys. And he's your lead sleeper, Matt. So obviously you love him.
Yeah.
Or
I mean,
favorite, sleeper favorite, whatever
he
bullshit term people
he's
use
just
for this stuff.
he's just underrated. You know exactly what you get out of him, and you're getting him rounds later than you would these starters. So you could maximize those top picks with. You could get just as good a production, maybe little slips in ERA and WHIP rounds later. To me, that's just golden.
That's kind of a rundown of our top 10. We talked about Lance Lynn as Maddie's sleeper favorite. Charlie, you got an interesting one. Sandy Alcantara is your sleeper favorite. Tell me why you would pick him among all the other pitchers that there are. Why he would be the guy.
So kind of the context with him, I guess, is looking at like ADP and seeing where he's going in comparison to his two pitching mates of Pablo Lopez and Sixto Sanchez. Sixto Sanchez.
There it is.
It's a little bit of a tongue twister there. I just feel like he's been better than both of those guys. Like if you look at his numbers, I feel like he's been better than both of. I mean, Sixto obviously came up last year, but I think he's been the better pitcher the last couple of seasons, and I just think he's kind of underrated.
He's very boring. He's very boring. I'm just saying, like, I don't mean to harp on it, but he's one of those guys where it's like, all right, I guess I'll pick up him off the waiver wire, or you draft him and it's just like, all right. Now, again, he's boring for me because I like the Comets. So for you, it might look at it as like, oh, great, this is a SP3 or SP4, whatever back end type guy. But of all the guys, that's an interesting. I get you're really taking in the sleeper though, because you don't have to pay a lot of draft capital for this guy.
Right. I was just kind of like looking at ADP, and that was something that like, jumped out at me as like looking at him in comparison to, again, the people around him. I would rather get him. I would rather, again, for this season, I would rather have him than his two pitching mates.
I guess that comes to like a philosophy question, Matt. I feel like you're a pretty good in between of Charlie and I. Like I love the upside. Like I love drafting upside. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. Where do you like a guy like Sixto Sanchez? Like you're drafting him for potential, not drafting. Sure, you saw a little bit of what he did, but he also stumbled down the way too. Like what he could be. But like your draft, you don't. Do you want to draft could be? Are you balancing that out with like, okay, I'll take a couple of those could be guys and a couple of those more, like I said, like the Hendricks or Lance Lynn's. This could kind of go to your whole philosophy. It doesn't have to be just pitching because I know that you have a pretty outlier feeling on pitching anyway.
I don't think you should have more than like one of those guys. Like maybe one hitter and one pitcher of a guy who you are paying. Or you're drafting him for what he could be. You don't want to have 5 of those guys on your team because then you're just setting yourself up to lose. Because if you're lucky if you hit one of those guys, and if you don't hit that one, then you have 5 guys left on your team that you're dropping after week 6. I hope Elvin is watching this, but a perfect example is Elvin's team in our league. Over the last few years,
That's the could be team right there.
The could be team. He had Calvin Biggio before he traded him to you. He has Vlad Guerrero, Gleyber Torres.
Whoa. I traded for Bo Bichette.
Oh, Bo Bichette,
Not
whatever.
Kevin Biggio.
Same player.
Not the same player by any means.
Anyway.
God, the slander
Tomato
will not
tomato.
Okay.
But anyway, Eloy Jimenez, he has all these guys that he drafted years ago that he's just been keeping on his team that by the time they actually pay off, they're going to be back in the free agent pool.
Sure. I
In
mean,
our
for
format,
in
in our
yeah, in
format.
our format, yes. But
But I'm
I
saying-
do agree. I do agree with you. I see what you're saying, Charlie. I know that you gotta still like a couple of those sexy picks every once in a while.
I think that's the thing with me is like, using Sixto as an example, like you're not going to get a value for what he's going to do this season. Even if he pitches up to like SP1, he's not going to get the innings to like really give you the full value for what you're going to be paying for him. So I'm all for like getting kind of prospects or promising guys if you can actually get them at good value. But if you're paying the same amount, like you were saying earlier, like you want, all three of us, like we want to be there at the end. We want to be competing for championships. I don't want to be paying a premium on a guy that I know is not going to be helping me in the playoffs because he's already been shut down.
Well said. I'm going to move a little bit quicker. I'm just going to go real quickly. I'm just going to give us each one sleeper. Mine's going to be the guy I should have taken, but I took Sixto instead, and that's German Marquez. Listen, I get that he pitches in Colorado, but I don't think he's going to be pitching in Colorado the whole year. I think he's going to be traded. Even if he doesn't, yeah, his ERA is going to be a little bit higher because he pitches in Colorado, but he puts up the numbers. Like he still puts up the numbers when he's not pitching in Coors. He could be a potential SP1. Like the guy's got great stuff. I'm really excited to see if he does get traded. I'm pretty sure he has a pretty bloated contract. And if they want to get everything off the books to sign Trevor Story or trade him and just do a complete rebuild, Marquez is gone. And if he goes to any other team, I honestly, truly believe he's a top 25 pitcher. And you don't have to draft him as that. So again, that kind of goes into like where we're getting these guys. If we're going to do let's just do a quick do not draft. And then we'll move into relief pitchers. Colbs, we got as your one do not draft pitcher.
Don't draft any of them.
Everybody,
Yeah.
everybody, don't draft pitchers. This is why you come to this podcast. Again, this is for the very specific league that we play in. But like, how are you really doing? What I think was good with doing this best ball league was kind of seeing how you would actually have to draft if you weren't going to have the specificness of our league. But are you taking this strategy in some sort of context with any league you play in? Because like, even if you're in a points league or anything like that, you just feel that your management can handle you in season to get those guys as opposed to spending the capital in draft.
I mean, it really just depends on the league. But I mean, if it's a more extensive league and not like if it's a standard league, maybe you want to go for pitching because they hit more categories. Like you have, wins, loss, Ks, ERA, and WHIP. So like technically a starting pitcher will hit all 5 of those categories. But when you get into more advanced leagues where there's 6, 7, 8 categories, and now starting pitchers are only hitting 4 categories or 5 categories, and there's still 7 that 2 or 3 others that they're not, and you have a hitter that's hitting all 8 categories, they're way more valuable to me. I just find hitters to be way more consistent in general, so that's why I choose them. And I mean, my do not draft is just any pitcher in the first 3 rounds. So in the 4th round you could get one of these guys. It's not an issue.
The first 3 rounds, that's not crazy. You're still going to be able to get guys like Lance Lynn and guys like who else would be on the back end of that? Castillo, maybe. Maybe you get him late in the 3rd, early 4th type area.
Like for me is just, I just want that. I just want hitters, man. I want bombs. I want those big bombs with good average. I don't want the Chris Davises of the world, 15 rounds later that are hitting 230. Well, he might not even be hitting 40 home runs anymore, but the old school Adam Dunn's. Adam Dunn's a great example. I want the guys hitting 280, 290 with 40 home runs, or 275 with 40 home runs. I don't want to.
Don't we all, Matt? Don't we?
Would any of us take a pitcher in the first round in a standard league?
So that was what I did with one of my teams. So I took in our best ball draft, I took DeGrom just to I wanted to feel what a team feels like. And I like it because I was able to get, it's a 10-team league. I was able to get Story on the backswing. I got Story. Then I went Max Scherzer. Then I went Bregman. So to me, like if you're in a shallow league like that, yeah. If I'm in a shallow league, I'll take a pitcher first round because I can make up for it with the bats in the later round. Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm just of a completely different mindset. To me, I want those set it and forget it couple top guys, and then do all my work for those SP 3, 4, 5. Like I love that. I love that in season management. But when I'm able to just throw up the Kershaws of the world and just know what you're gonna get, man, that's a good feeling because there's a shit ton of outfielders that I could get. So again, it really just depends on the depth of the league, the rule structure of your league. But I think those top guys are even more important this year, and it shows even more by looking at the fact that I put Lance Lynn in my top 10. It's like those
Now, so
three.
now you're discrediting.
No, I'm
Lance.
not discrediting him. I'm using that as an example of the fact that those top guys are really going to anchor 4 or 5 teams.
I think to John's point, I think we're all kind of worried about like, how innings are going to be managed. And so I agree with you, John. I think that the top guys that we know can kind of pencil in for 200 innings are probably more rare this season than in any seasons prior. Like I just don't think that there's going to be
100%.
nearly as many guys like that. So that is why a guy like Lance Lynn is probably more valuable this season than other seasons because he's going to get that 200 innings and he's going to give you the 30 starts or whatever. And like you said, he's kind of a set it and forget it kind of guy.
I don't mean to keep harping on it, but like I don't see a way in any league that Buehler or Flaherty finish above Lance Lynn. I just don't. I don't see it coming off of COVID season, coming off of just they're still young. They're not going to they're still going to manage them a little bit. And even if they do, I don't have it in front of me, but Lance Lynn has to be going 3 rounds later than those two guys. I mean, Buehler's going top 20.
Bueller's 22, Flaherty's 35, and Lance Lynn's 59.
Yeah, that's crazy. Lance Lynn, I'm moving him up. He's my number 3 pitcher. That's it. It's official. No, I'm just kidding. All right, quickly now. Give me the spiel on Lamet here, Charlie. Tell me why we both agree. I don't know Matt's feelings, but Charlie, tell me why you won't end up with a lot of Dinelson Lamet.
Yeah, I mean, super simple. He's just to me a huge injury risk, and I don't want to pay for someone that I think is destined for the operating table and Tommy John. Like I don't see how he makes it through the whole season. I mean, I listen. I hope for the best for him, but I don't think that's going to happen.
The Dodger curse right here. He's just trying to curse him on the pod.
Oh, son of a bitch. No, I completely agree. I think all the comments looked like he was even told at the end of last year, like if he continued to pitch, he was going to have to get Tommy John. That's why they shut him down in the playoffs. Obviously, let him rest up. If he has to go get the surgery, shut him down. Have him and Clev come back next year. Like I completely agree with you. And he's going like top 100, which is insane. So
I think if you just like think back to prior seasons and guys like this, where it's like, oh, they may need the surgery. I swear, I mean, this isn't
every time they do.
Nine out of 10 times.
They do. Yeah.
The only guy that I can think of that really avoided it, I think, was Tanaka, right? Like he had that moment where I think he had a partially torn, and they said, oh, he could just rest in rehab, and he did, and it worked out for him. But that's the exception. That's not the rule.
All right, let's do relief pitchers. It was a good talk. I think that really covered a lot of those top guys. Like I said, there's so many guys that we could talk about, like just that might jump into that range next year. All right, relief pitcher. This is consensus, which I'm surprised about. The 3 of us all have Hader number 1, and in most drafts, I think Hendricks is number 1, but we'll see. I think it's back and forth. To me, Charlie, you could go into a little bit more of this. I think Hader has better stuff, but I could see the argument for Hendricks in just the fact that like the stats of saves might come more to what I think is the better team in the White Sox. They might just have more save opportunities. I just think Hader is probably the nastiest relief pitcher in baseball.
I feel like Hader has a longer track record as well. So I think that was kind of one of the determining factors between those two guys that really pushed Hader. I mean, I feel like Hader's been doing it for at least 3 or 4 years as one of the best relievers in the game. And also, like, kind of to answer your comment about like the White Sox being a better team, I think sometimes it's almost like you want the closers on those like good but not great teams, because to me they're more likely to have the closer games and have the more like save opportunities. And I'm not saying the White Sox are going to be blowing teams out constantly, but I feel like their offense could take a huge step, and I feel like there could be a lot of 7-2 games, 8-2 games that just aren't going to give Hendricks that opportunity. But I mean,
It's a good point.
I
That's a
just
good
think
point.
even besides that, I think stuff wise and track record, to me, Hader is the clear number one.
I think Hendricks has done it for two. I think Hendricks did it all of 2019,
Yeah,
and then I think he did it obviously in 2020, because that was the rub on the Athletics, is they hadn't had like a back-to-back closer,
right.
because they had traded Trinan the year before that. Basically, they would always have a amazing closer, and then he would the next year get blown up. So, yeah. Matt, we know you love Hader. Do you worry though at all? I mean, he has home run problems. When you throw the ball really hard, sometimes people hit the ball really hard.
I don't care.
Is he the clear number one to you, or do you think you think him and Hendricks are kind of like in the same conversation?
To me, he's the clear number one. I mean, last year he had 21 games played. I mean, he only pitched 19 innings, but he had one blow up inning. He had, I don't know. To me, a guy, if you have a closer who could get as many strikeouts as a starter in a season, that's invaluable. Like in 2019, he had 140 strikeouts.
It's crazy.
That's ridiculous.
Charlie, is there a chance that Josh Hader is not even the best relief pitcher on his team?
Oh, here we go.
There's a chance, but I would still take I would take Hader over Devin Williams.
Airbender Devin Williams, just ridiculous stuff. We talked earlier about Castillo having perhaps the best pitch in baseball. I think it might be rivaled by Devin Williams. He has
He's
a
fantastic.
freaking pitch named the Airbender. His changeup is just insane. I know him very well because he's on my fantasy baseball team in our league. Listen, if you're in a holds league, he's right up there. But there's a chance that they move on. There was talks about Hader going to San Diego already this year. There's a chance. I think Brewers are in contention for that division. So I don't see why the hell they would trade him. The Brewers are a weird team that like they make moves at the deadline, but they don't make many moves like going into the season. But they're always there. I mean, last year they made the playoffs in this weird wonky year of, I think they were like 29-31 or whatever it was. But before that, I think they've made the playoffs like 3 years in a row or something like that. Like they're always there. They're always in contention. I think they'll be there again. I can't think of a better bullpen in baseball than just having. I know they got a couple other guys too, but just having Josh Hader and I mean, the Dodgers could be up there. They have some nasty guys, but
Mets are pretty good now.
yeah, Mets are too. Mets are a similar situation, right? I mean, they have Diaz, who has been doing it for such a long time, but they have so many guys in the background too, like a guy like Trevor May. Again, if you're in a hold league, he's electric, and you could see him step into that role and be the closer if there's any Edwin Diaz stumbling. We've seen it before.
All right. Hader and Hendricks both have like low ERAs and low whips. I just like Hader's strikeout potential. I like to add to that. Like I'm not drafting high starting pitchers, so I'm making up for it with players like Hader, Devin Williams, James Karinchak. Guys who are gonna, as relief pitchers, strike out over 100 players in a season. which is, huge. And they're pitching in games that are just going to lower my ERA and WHIP. So like those are the types of players I like. For me, I don't like to pay for saves because I don't want to pay for one category. Because I don't care if you get a pitcher who's going to get 40 saves, but his ERA is going to be 4.5 and have a 1.3 WHIP. Like to me, that doesn't do it. Like I'd rather not necessarily punt the category, but I'd rather get a guy who's only going to get 20 saves or a Devin Williams, a guy who has the potential to become a closer, but also contributes in 3 categories instead of just one.
Yeah, Charlie, how are you handling the situation? Because I think this year, probably more than ever, is like, what the fuck is going on with relief pitcher? I mean, the past couple of years, it's always been like, oh, there's those 3 big guys. Chapman's always been a big guy. There's always been Kenley Jansen's been there forever. This is the first year where I'm just like, I don't want to invest in any of these guys. Give me a Corinne check or something like that. But are you paying for it? Are you how are you handling it? What's your strategy with this?
No, I'm very similar to Matt. I'm not gonna pay a premium for a player that's only gonna help me specifically in one category. I mean, to me, Josh Hader is one of the few exceptions because, like Matt said, his Ks are close to like close to starter level. Also, like I like the fact that he pitches multiple innings. So to me, like that's why I think he's number one. I still probably wouldn't pay for him, but yeah, I'm not going to pay for a Kenley Jansen or a Chapman, any of these top closers because I don't know. I would rather invest my money elsewhere.
Charlie, if we're just thinking a regular auction league, what's the most you're paying for a closer? You don't even have to give me a specific, but where do you feel comfortable if hitting the bid button on a top end closer?
$10, $12, maybe. I mean that would be for one of the top guys. I don't I mean specifically in our league. I mean we see guys go for close to 20, and that's outrageous to me.
I think 30.
Yeah, I mean that's insanity to me.
Aroldis Chapman, $29.
Yeah, I mean it's extremely volatile. There's like pretty much I think we could look at our list and cut it in half, and 5 of those guys will be worth drafting and 5 of those guys won't be worth drafting. Like it's just too up and down for me. I definitely agree. And again, that comes into that just kind of like management, and also even if you're not in a holds league, like those guys, like Matt was saying, like those setup guys will help you in the ratios. And then you also have the hope that eventually they just take over that closing role, right? So Matt, you've done that for a while. You're just picking off those 8th inning guys that are usually electric and the kind of like the kind of next in line type guy anyway. Sometimes they're usually like the younger guys. So
And it depends on your league. Like and your dedication. Like if you don't want to follow on a daily basis, then get a more sure thing. But if you want to put the time in, then there's always going to be saves in the waiver wire. You're always going to find them. I mean, even in our league that's like super competitive, like there's always a couple saves that are still out there, because they will blow up your ERA and WHIP, but they're there if that's what you want, So
the elite guys you would hope would help your ERA and WHIP. Kinsler is the guy I was thinking of. That it's like, all right, I mean, he got 12 saves or something last year, but he also had like a 4 ERA and like.
I don't think it was quite that bad, but the one thing that he really struggled in is he was the rare closer that gives you very minimal strikeouts.
Sure.
He was a ground ball guy. So his ERA and WHIP was actually okay. He just wasn't helping you in Ks at all.
But again, that guy's free.
Right.
So like that's a waiver wire pickup where it's like, if I'm just trying to get saves, just put that guy on my team.
Well, and also like kind of what we were talking about, I don't even think it takes that much strategy or anticipation to look at teams that maybe have a closer that's like set in stone, but they're not going to be super competitive, and you can kind of anticipate like, hey, at some point this guy's going to be traded. Who's that eighth inning guy, that has that electric stuff that we just kind of know. Like I think a perfect example is the James Karinchak. Like we knew at some point Hand was going to be gone, and he was going to have. I mean, I know he hasn't officially been given the closer role yet, but
I don't know. He got blown up again today. I'm starting to worry about that guy.
I think he'll be fine.
He's
trade
one
him
of
to-
those. He's
trade
one of
him to me.
those. He's one of those guys. I'll take the risk for $1. He's one of those guys
Right.
though that like, boy, you talk about stuff, but then the command is definitely like if he's off, and that might be what keeps him out of that closer role, but we'll see. Instead of going down and literally going through everybody, is there anybody here that really stands out for you guys? I was going to bring up Rosenthal. I mean, he signs with the Athletics. He kind of had a second coming in San Diego last year. It's kind of telling that they didn't go back out after him. I mean, I know they have depth in their bullpen, but he was pretty nasty last year. Maybe they just didn't want to pay him. But he goes to the Athletics, who is like one of those, like, if you can nail down the closer for the Athletics, you just know he's going to get you 30 something saves because they're just always in those scrappy games.
Right.
And he's a guy that it's like, if he's my first relief pitcher, sure. Like I'm perfectly fine with that. Matt, is there anybody that stands out on your list, on my list, on Charlie's list that you just want to address?
No, I mean, most people that all of us have had has been like strikeout guys. I mean, to me, like the only guy that really scares me is Kenley Jansen. I mean, and not because I don't think he's good or not. It was just the way he's been managed. Like if he has a few bad outings, like they have no problem just putting someone else in there. Like,
Well, not somebody
he's-
else. I mean, they have Gratterall, who is
Yeah. I'm
beast.
saying like to
And
be
Blake
replaced.
Trinan.
and Blake
to-
Trinan.
To be replaced, like
Yeah.
obviously they showed it, like he wasn't pitching well in the playoffs, and boom, he was out of there. Like it was not. It's not like they're like, oh well, let's give him another try. Let's give him another. No, it was just like, no, sorry, man, like we're not seeing it from you. And
Their
I feel like-
team, I know this is a Dodgers love fest on this podcast. Their team is fucking ridiculous. I mean, it's insane that like we're talking about Kenley Jansen, where it's like, yeah, but if they don't need him, they could put in Gratterall, or they have Trinan, or they have Victor Gonzalez, or they went out and picked up Knable, who maybe turns it around, like, and all the other like mid relief pitchers they have, Joe Kelly, all those guys, like, Jesus Christ. Not to mention the 17 starting pitchers that any
Charlie.
team in baseball would love.
Put it away, Charlie.
It's unbelievable to see. I just like to see greatness. I like to see a team fucking know what they want to do and be great and go for it. So
So
to
So
me,
enough
it's,
about the
Terrific.
Mets. Enough about the Mets. We can start talking about the Dodgers.
so let's talk about the Angels. Right. Charlie, give me a guy on this list that you wouldn't be surprised if they were the relief pitcher one next year. Like if we're doing this podcast next year, who are you not surprised that they're going off the board RP1? Is it anybody on this list? Is there somebody else that you?
I mean, I think a guy that I could see next year being RP1 is a Devin Williams if Josh Hader gets traded, and he kind of ascends to that multi-inning closer role. I could definitely see him. I think Edwin Diaz. I think he has the stuff to, if he can turn it around, be back to being, arguably in that number one reliever conversation. I think that's about it. I would love to say Jansen, but I don't think that he gets back there.
I'll give you I'll give you whatever odds you want on that one, bud.
No. I'm in agreement.
Matt, do you see anybody there that who are you thinking next year is RP1?
Josh Hader.
Yeah, I mean it's not crazy to think.
But I could definitely see, Karinchak or Devin Williams. Like to me, those guys are strikeout artists as well, and I mean they bring just as much upside if given the opportunity. This is spring ball. I'm not taking any James Karinchak getting blown up. Like he could be working on his changeup. He could just throw changeup every single pitch. Like I don't even know what went on in his. He could just be like, I want to work on my changeup. I don't care if people hit it. I'm just working on location. That's it.
You know what? You're
Yeah.
right, Matt. Let me take that trade that I just offered you for off the table. That's a good. That's a great point. Thanks for making that decision for me.
Yeah. No
Let, let's just go through real quick some of the sleepers we like, some of the do not drafts. I put Pomerantz because I honestly wouldn't be
Right.
surprised if he's the RP1 at the. I don't know if he'll be the RP1 going into next year, but at the end of this year with that team, if they just let him freaking take the role and they don't play with it, he's freaking nasty. I mean, he
I
could
think
absolutely be there.
I think that's the problem though. Like I'm worried that they're gonna give my old buddy Mark Melanson the closer role because they may value Pomerantz in that we can put him wherever we need him role. But his stuff is amazing. I'm concerned that they're not going to give him that closer role.
Well, I think one thing too that we haven't really brought up is like it's also like teams are just moving away from the closer role, right? So like it's just kind of become like the philosophy now of like, why am I going to put my best pitcher in the ninth inning against your 7, 8, and 9 hitter?
Right.
If I know that coming up here, I got, Yelich, Locaine, Keston Hira, then let me put in my, my closer there, right? Like,
Yeah.
So I think that teams have just realized and gotten a little bit smarter with it. Or there's teams that are just letting people, like maybe what like the Dodgers did with Julio Urias. Maybe they're going to have guys that are just like, all right, well, he's getting the 7, 8, and 9. You know what I mean? Like he's like a long relief closer, which again just moves us away from like the importance of a closer.
Probably on our list should be Kirby Yates should probably be in there somewhere, but
he's on my sleeper favorite. But
yeah, I mean he was.
I mean, I think that segues to me and why I have him on my do not draft.
Oh, there we go. It's because he's playing in Toronto.
No, I actually similar to Lamet. I'm just it's more of an injury concern thing for me. He had arthroscopic elbow surgery.
Oh, that's non-invasive.
Matt's our medical expert. He's our
Stefania Bell.
Yeah, he's the resident MD.
Except everything is just it's not that big of a deal.
Yeah,
just rub some dirt on it.
It's either that or he's a bitch.
He's
trash, bro. He's trash.
He's trash. Yeah, he's trash. But if he gets the role, that's a fun, exciting team that should be in a lot of competitive games.
I just think also that Toronto has a lot of guys right behind him that if he falters or has issues with injury, I could see Rafael Dolis or Jordan Romano, one of those guys, taking off with the role.
Matt, you have on your do not draft list. Now I know you listed your guys a little bit differently, but you have Chad Green at number 8, and on your do not draft you have Aroldis Chapman. Do you think this is the year that Chapman actually loses the role, or is this a draft capital thing? You're just not going to pay for him.
Just not going to pay for him. I mean, like to me, like. I mean, I kind of did this list a little bit towards how our league is designed. I think Chad Green has the ability to get close to, 90 strikeouts in a season, which to me is great for a relief pitcher that I'm going to, well, maybe not now, but I could have gotten for $1, and to have that with a good ERA and WHIP, I'm going to take that all day.
He's a less expensive Devin Williams now.
Yeah.
I mean, Devin Williams is getting drafted now with the idea, unless you're in a holds league, it's getting drafted now with that built-in like Hader might get traded, or
like how Hader was with Corey Knebel 4 years ago.
Yeah,
like where there's that trade in the air, so he's gonna have those holes, but in those off days he's getting those saves, but he's gonna strike out a shit ton of people.
He's also young, so like he could be their closer for the next 5 years, whereas like Chad Green's not going to be the Yankees closer for the next 5 years.
I don't even think Chad Green will be the closer if
right.
Chapman went down. I just like him as a late relief guy with a lot of K potential.
Two final things that I want to cover. I want to cover how you guys handle, if you handle drafting anybody from Tampa Bay ever. Just hitters, starting pitchers, relief pitchers. I mean, it is not fun to draft anybody in fantasy baseball from Tampa Bay just because of how much manipulation they do. I want to cover Tampa Bay, and then I want to cover St. Louis because I think St. Louis has an interesting thing going too. So, Charlie, do you like anybody there to come out of Tampa Bay? Do you think Nick Anderson is gonna be the guy?
I think like we've touched on earlier, it really depends on the league format. I think in our particular league where we have holds as a category, I love the Tampa Bay bullpen. I think there's a lot of guys, and I have no problem getting a high strikeout guy who's going to give me holds and saves. I'll take that, no problem. I think if you're in a saves only league, then maybe I don't take some of these guys quite as high. But yeah, I mean, I don't think the Tampa Bay Rays are going to have a set guy. I think there's going to be multiple guys, Peter Fairbanks, Nick Anderson, probably some guys that we don't even know yet. I think they're going to always do it by committee.
Do they still have like Jose Alvarado and?
Yep, Diego Castillo. Yeah, so I think they have like 3 or 4 guys that are going to fill that role.
Yeah, I agree. Matt, I'm just going to assume that you're not paying for Nick Anderson or,
I mean, I have him in my list if you didn't notice. But like you said, it's our league. He's going to strike out a lot of people. And he's going to I don't care. I'm not paying, but I'm not going to pay for the saves.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like if he comes at a price $2, $3, boom, or $1 or $2, $3, and I'll take the guy. But I'm not going to take him as like with the expectation of getting 25, 30 saves. I'm taking him with the expectation of like helping out my ERA, WHIP, and strikeouts, and contributing elsewhere.
Yeah. No, I completely agree. And then last thing, I just think this is an interesting one because they're just a cornerstone of baseball. They're always there. They're always competitive. The save opportunities should be there. But who do you guys think closes for St. Louis? Maddie, who do you think?
I don't fucking know. I think it's committee between Gallegos. Oh, yeah, that's right. 2 L's is a Y. It's a Y sounding. Gallegos. Gant and Reyes. I mean, they're all, I think, above average pitchers, and I think it's just going to be. I think it just might be one has a bad outing, they put another one in until he has a bad outing, they put the next one in until he has a bad outing, and they just rotate that shit.
I don't even think you named their closer.
Yeah.
What, Jordan Hicks? I meant Jordan Hicks and not Gant. Sorry.
I mean, Gant's a great bullpen guy, but I don't think he gets the. I
meant Hicks, Reyes, and Gallegos were the guys I meant.
Gotcha.
I think Gallegos gets the first shot, though, to be honest with you.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay. Charlie?
I think the Cardinals want Hicks to be their guy, but Matt's right. They may give Gallegos first shot just because Hicks is coming back from injury. But I think ultimately, I agree with Matt. I think it's going to be by committee. I think, they have a couple of guys that have shown that they can go out there and finish off a game. I mean, I think even a guy like Andrew Miller, if it's a lefty heavy ninth inning, they might even let him go in there and get the save. So I think it's going to be similar to Tampa Bay. I think unlike Tampa Bay, I think they would prefer to have one guy. That just seems to be their philosophy. But I think just based on the talent level and their bullpen and the arms that they have, I think it'll end up being a committee.
Yeah, like closing pitcher is starting to sound like what center was to the NBA like 20 years ago. Like I feel like it's just adapting now, and there's just not going to be the typical ninth inning guy. But if there's a team that's going to be wanting to hold that tradition, I feel like it's the Cardinals. Like I feel like they're still going to be in that mold. I do think Hicks is going to be the guy because I think talent's going to win out. I think Gallegos has had a couple ups and downs. He's had injury problems himself. I might be biased because Jordan Hicks is a type 1 diabetic, so I really love the guy. I love to see anybody persevere.
Is Jonas Brothers going to be our theme music?
But let's do
Nick
it.
Jonas.
We
Nick
could
Jonas?
we could talk about all type 1 diabetic athletes. We could have
What's the tight end for the Ravens?
Mark
boy.
Andrews.
Yeah, isn't he type 1?
He is, yeah. Jay Cutler. Yeah, I don't know. I like Jordan Hicks. I root for the guy. I hope. I mean, he throws fucking cheese. Hits like 102, 103. Love him. Alex Reyes. I still think that they want him to be a starter. I don't know, man. That guy's getting. He's got like I got prospect fatigue with that guy. Like I've heard so much about him. Like I don't know. We'll see where it is. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got. I mean, if you guys want to cover any other guys, if you want to go, if there's anything else you wanted to hit on, I think we did a pretty good job of talking about how we handle starting pitcher, how we handle relief pitcher. Again, it's not really a slight on any of these guys as much as it's just when you have to take them, right? Like it's the strategy of when you have to get these guys, what they're actually going to contribute, and real life baseball versus fantasy baseball.